Good to finally see you. How's everybody's week been? Good, not so good? Okay. So what we're going to do today is we have a number of new participants to the podcast. So I want to do a little bit of a recap of what we've talked about with respect to procrastination. And I think you're going to find that it's going to jog your memory about different ways that it might apply to you and voluntary or involuntary choices that you're making that may or may not be working well for you, okay? So remember when we talked about procrastination, I said that it really is, it's got a bad name, it's got a bad rap, as it were, because procrastination is actually quite often an unconscious choice that we make, or it's a set of behaviors that result in a choice, excuse me, that saves us from something worse than whatever the outcome would have been without that choice. So for instance, delaying and handing a paper in late, rushing to a deadline because company's coming, you come up with ways that you procrastinate or you delay, and then we give ourselves the approval, the assurance, as it were, that we could have done better if we'd only had more time. But we left it till the last minute and we worked to a deadline. And there are other ways as well, all right? And I'm just going to give you a snapshot because we've done about 3 or 4 podcasts on procrastination, and I'm going to mix it up with other topics as well, but we're going to continue on and pretty much work through this wonderful little book that if procrastination to any degree is a feature in your life. This book is by Dr. Jane Burka and Dr. Lenora Ewan. And it is my Bible on procrastination, and it works completely synergistically with the book that Sue and I wrote, Conquer the Clutter, Strategies to Identify, Manage, and Overcome Hoarding. All right, so they fit really well together. Remember, this isn't a surprise to anyone, the first main cause of procrastination, fear of failure. And so that's fed by the belief that there actually is something that is reachable often enough, with enough regularity, enough certainty, enough whatever, that perfection is possible. And nothing short of perfection will do. Here's what happens with individuals, many individuals, who adopt that belief and then act accordingly. And what they end up doing is that if I can't do it perfectly because I don't have the knowledge, or I don't have the time, I don't have the equipment, I don't have something, I don't have the motivation, don't have the energy, then I'm not even going to start. And then what happens is, if that activity, that task, or whatever we're procrastinating about, if it's important enough to you at some point, maybe not this minute, then it is probably going to be you burning the midnight oil, as it were, or rushing like crazy, frantic chaos, that really negative energy when you've run out of fill in the blank, but you need to get it done. All right, somebody comes to the door and you don't like the way your front hall looks, because when you've come in, you've procrastinated, and you've made it okay for yourself on a regular enough basis to just put things down, all right? Because your day has worn you out, or maybe you've developed a habit of doing that and your day hasn't worn you out at this point, but you've developed that habit. And so it's a routine for you. And then somebody comes to the door, or the fire department does house calls to make sure that people have their smoke detectors installed properly, or there's an emergency and first responders have to get in, and the entrance or egress route isn't enough that you can get the help, you can answer the door without embarrassment. Okay, so I hear that all the time. And so I know that for some of you, that is a way that procrastination hurts you, all right? So the search for perfection, hand in hand with that, is that mediocrity breeds contempt. If I can't do it perfectly, then anything short, nothing else will do, even if I had the time, even if I had the skill, even when I have the tools, even when I have the motivation. If I can't do it perfectly, then it's mediocre, and mediocre is not in my vocabulary. And so again, I delay, or I procrastinate, or I tell myself, when this, then I'll do it, all right? However, that becomes a loop, all right? Just be aware of what you're telling yourself. The other thing too that often happens with individuals who procrastinate, and it's kind of hand in glove with procrastination, is the really strong need to, I'd just rather do it by myself. Okay, I would appreciate, I appreciate your offer, but I want to keep control over this, and I want to do it myself, because what I tell myself perhaps is, if it doesn't turn out, I don't want to be embarrassed in front of people. Or in that search for perfection, it has to be done my way. And so it's going to delay being done until I can do it, because do you believe that you know better? Or I'm only comfortable if things happen exactly my way? Do you realize how that will trip you up and end up with things sitting around longer than being able to compromise a little and say, you know what, in the all over picture of things, which gives me more? Accepting help, or asking, for heaven forbid, asking for help, and compromising on the way it's done, but it gets done, all right? There is some merit to that. And so feeding into that, I want to do it my way, or I prefer to do it alone, is the belief that there actually is a right way. I have some news for you. Right? There are probably 6 great ways to do anything, all right? And so the fact it's not getting done, or it's getting delayed, or you're putting yourself in a panic to get it done because now you're up against it in some way, all right, don't pay that price. Just ask yourself, is it really necessary to pay that price? Shake it off. Get it done well enough, all right? Okay. The other thing too, when you believe that there is a right way, it means there's a wrong way as well. And so I know many people that I have worked with and that I work with right now who really struggle on the horns of the dilemma. There is a right way. It's only worth doing if I do it the right way, or it gets done the right way. But if I do it, what happens if I make a mistake and I get it wrong? What does that say about me as an individual? My worth, okay, my competence, my sense of being worthwhile, okay, underneath, and so I delay, okay? So underneath that apprehension of getting it wrong or making a wrong decision, okay, I want to give you a scenario that I run into. This procrastination is hand in glove with hoarding. Hand in glove, all right? It's not exactly the same, but it's one of the ways hoarding occurs, all right? I run into this all the time where people are trying to decide what goes in the garbage bag to be put out. But will they need it again? Have they read that flyer accurately enough that they're going to actually remember? Could it be important? It's not important right now, all right? It's not important right now, but could it be important? What will I use to remind myself if I find that date that the deal on pizza free delivery, or pizza you get 3 pizzas for the price of 1, that date, if I don't remember it, or I'm not, we don't really order pizza, but maybe we'd want to. There could be a possibility, all right? And so I keep it. Or I put it in the bag and I fill up my bags, but I can't pull the trigger. I find it really hard to put the bags out, right? Because what if I drop my keys in there? What if something fell in there? Or what if when I scrunched up those bags that I brought things home, I didn't discover something that was left in the bottom of the bag? Now, I don't have time to open the garbage bags and go through it all right now, so I'll leave it just for now, all right? I'll leave it just for now until I have time to really reassure myself that I haven't accidentally put something in there and I'm going to need it. Is there anybody here with us today who lives with that? All right, because that's procrastination. Okay. All or nothing thinking, all right, is very common among procrastinators. And as long as I don't finish whatever it is I'm doing, knitting that sweater, finishing that report, doing some task around the house, doing something for a group that I belong to, as long as I don't finish, I don't get judged. I don't have to judge myself how well I did and how well this project represents me, because a project can represent you. Everything I produce is about me. It's about what I'm worth, how competent I am, how dedicated I am, how good I am, how worthwhile I am. It's what it basically boils down to. And so all or nothing thinking is, if I don't finish it, then I don't get judged and I don't have to judge myself. So, because if I finish it and it's not perfect, it's not exactly the way I find the slightest little flaw in it, that's going to reflect, it is really going to bother me, and it's going to reflect on me. And I'm going to judge myself probably more harshly than anybody else would. But somebody out there is going to start finding fault with not just this project that I was good enough to do, all right, probably as a volunteer, and they're going to start taking pot shots at me, cheap shots at me. And so Elaine is saying that she's concerned sometimes, and this can happen. This can happen, okay? But once you've checked it once, before you put anything in that bag, that's the time, if you have a high need to check, all right? Checking is not a bad thing. Over-checking until it can never be finished. That fuels anxiety in you beyond belief. It's not good for you. It's really not good for you, because that then is like, you know, when you spill water and it kind of spreads, that anxiety spreads too. It can be generalized. So I'm going to suggest what I suggest to people when I'm working with them. If you have a high need to check, let's check before it goes in the bag. And when you're working alone at home in between sessions with me, that's the thing to do. All right. And you can even, this is one of the things I do when I'm out doing a big cleanup. So sometimes when people are packing things away, they are putting, you know, clothing in a bag, or they're putting shoes in a bag, or they're putting books in a bag, or they're putting something in a bag, and they want to donate those things. And they want to keep these things, all right? And there isn't any room to take the keep things and put them away right now, okay? So what I suggest is check as thoroughly as you need to once. And put it, when you put it in the bag, if it's in the bag, it's because it has been checked satisfactorily to you. You didn't drop a knife or a fork or a spoon in there when you were clearing a plate off or something, okay? You didn't leave the receipt in the bottom of the bag for this item that you want to return. There are good reasons to check. Over-checking, but there's a line, right? Everything has boundaries and limits, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today too. Because if your boundaries and limits are shaky, you're not good enough at boundaries and limits, all right, to protect yourself and others. This is about boundaries and limits. What I do in those big cleanups is I tie the bag different ways. And so when I filled a bag and it's garbage, it gets tied one way, always. I know that's the garbage bag. We're not going to mistake that bag and put the donate bag out or the keep bag out. And the donate bag is tied another way. There are all kinds of ways to tie a bag, right? You can just tie two pieces like this. That's garbage. Donate is like a little gift. And so what I do is I pull the pieces together, and because I mentioned I love Glad garbage bags. Glad contractor size flex bags. I swear I'll do a free ad for them. I love them so much. Pull the little handles, the little straps out of them, tie them in a bow. That's your donate. All right. And your keep, maybe you tie them, the four corners of the bag, one and the other. You've got 3 ways to tie a bag, and each one, and if you do it all the time, you only have to check once. Because if it's in that garbage bag or it's in that donate bag, you reassured yourself before it went in the bag. All right? And as we work on boundaries and limits together in these podcasts, which is going to be one of the next segments, I'm hoping that I'm going to give you the information, and you can use that information to develop the skills that you need, enough assurance that you only have to check once. And when it's tied whatever way, you can let it go. All right? Okay, so this is about perfectionism. All right. We also talked, because and the reason we're going through this, by the way, folks who have been part of this series, is that I got a lot of emails this week of new people who were joining, and I don't want them to be sitting there saying, what's she talking about? Okay, so I just want to do this little recap. Fear of failure, that's not a surprise to anyone. Fear of success, however, sometimes does come as a surprise. Know that success, the definition of success for each and every one of you, me, Jim, whoever's out there, our definition of success for ourselves is individual to us. All right, but it shouldn't be a tyrant. It should, hopefully, because remember that growing, learning, developing human being business on the goals, on the 3 goals system that is in the book that I've been coaching you on. Well, hopefully our definition of success for ourselves always pushes the envelope just a little tiny bit more, so that we get that sense of reward, that sense of accomplishment. So success, some people believe they're afraid of success. They don't really realize it. But here, they're a little, somebody on the committee in our head, okay, or we ourselves have voiced over, you know, if I succeed, all right, I might be a show-off, and then people won't like me. Or worse yet, somebody's going to resent it, and they're going to start taking pot shots at me. I kind of like to stay in the wings, and you know, if I don't finish it, then I can't be a success. If I delay so long that I have to blame it on what I'm going to call a fault, even though it was a behavioral strategy that I unconsciously use to avoid having to take the heat of actually being in the limelight or being pointed out as, oh, stand up and take a bow. Some people just cringe at that. Well, success demands too much of me, okay? And I'm afraid that if I am a success, somehow involuntarily, I'm going to get swept into this process where this success isn't enough. Now I need to do more. And then I need to do more, and more and more and more is expected of me, wanted of me. And remember that thinking? Remember that thinking that's in the back of many of our minds, that if I'm not a success, if I don't do it perfectly, it means something negative about me. All right, so I'm going to actually lose control by being a success, because then somebody else is going to want something, or they're going to expect the next time I do anything that I will exceed this. I don't think I can do better than this. I don't think I want to do better than this. I'm better just to sit back and delay, okay? The other thing too that procrastination can do is it can help us if we have any fear of commitment, which can sound odd, okay? So commitment phobia is an indirect way of staying out of the spotlight. So I don't commit. I don't commit soon enough so that I'm part of this wave that'll carry me away. Somebody gets hurt. If somebody gets hurt, when I'm a success, it means somebody lost. I don't want to be responsible for hurting anybody. Or the additional downside I mentioned a second ago is if I'm a success, some hotshot somewhere is going to start taking kind of, it's not going to be perfect. Somebody's going to start finding fault. And it won't just be, I won't feel it's just with the project. I will think it's me personally, because remember, what I produce is a measure of me. So everything I do, no matter how well or how poorly? How good? How bad? How in the middle? Okay, that's me. It's personal. I haven't learned to separate myself from, I did this well and I'm happy with it. Good enough. I set a boundary. I set a limit for myself. You want more? Nope, that wasn't part of the bargain when I did it. Okay, but it isn't about me personally. You're not finding fault with me personally. Okay, so don't attach yourself consistently and universally to what you produce. Right? You were worthy from the time you were born, and you aren't worthier or less worthy if a project excels, okay, or it bombed. Learn from it. Okay. Some people, have you ever heard anybody say, you know, if I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck at all? The me concept, all right, our self-image concept has two parts to it. The what is me and what is not me. And when we assess ourselves, we decide, this is me, this is not me. And sometimes we decide, I'm just not lucky. Sometimes nobody's lucky all the time. All right, nobody can, unless they know the numbers. Well, that's a whole other story, folks. If you win it at the horse races or you're in at cards all the time, that's a different story. There are none of those people here. So when you decide it's not me, you take yourself out of the game. You take yourself out of any possibility that the next thing you do might clinch it. You're deciding not to compete, all right? Because it's a safer zone for you. And that's not a problem. It's up to you. You know, you're adults. However, if you take yourself out of the game and it's a game you really would have liked to be more of a part of, have more experience with, have more joy from, because you're afraid of competing. You're only competing with yourself. You're not competing with anybody else. And you're worthy you're worthy before you started. What we produce is not the measure of us. Okay? It's not the measure of us. It's just what we managed on that particular day, at that particular time, with those particular circumstances. Right? Fear of being controlled. We talked about this last week. As soon as I finish this segment, I'm going to take those questions that people have in the chat box. Okay, fear of being controlled. And so we kind of subvert. All right. Now we talked, this is more common. Okay, it's not the only way it can happen, but it's more common among people who grew up in families that were very rigid, extremely high functioning, and this is who we are as a family. And if you want to fit in, you better be, all right, spoken or unspoken, or very authoritarian families, where when it would have been appropriate to make mistakes and learn from them, you weren't allowed to make mistakes. Maybe you had helicopter parents or grandparents or whatever, all right? And they were like, we're supervising here and you're not going off. We're gonna prevent you from making any mistakes because we're gonna tell you the right way to do it, and we're gonna be Johnny on you until you do it the right way. And you never got to learn from mistakes. You never got the experience of, no, that's not the way I want it to be. next time I will do this differently. Well, we never got to define ourselves. And I have people who are in their 70s now, all right, who I'm working with, and it is so sad to see them still reacting to messages that come straight to mind anytime they have a challenge. All right. And it's like my dad used to say, or my mom used to say, or my grandmother or my grandfather used to say. Usually it's parents. All right. And your way of affirming who you are in a passive way is kind of, watch me. I'm going to do anything else but the way you wanted it done. All right? Anything else but. Watch me now. But remember when we talked about that last time, what's true there is that they're still running the show. They're still in charge. You haven't taken charge. You can do anything and everything contrary to the way you were taught, the way they made you do it, the way you resented being so controlled or overly supervised. You can do that, but they're still running the show. They're calling the tune. They're calling the tune because you're reacting to them. They're long gone, but you're still reacting to them, which means they're calling the tune. They're still in charge. What would happen if you just stopped and thought, what's today? Today is Wednesday, the 29th of July. Who am I today? And what do I want and need? First, what do I need? What are my needs? Because chances are your needs are very different from their needs. And their authority, their input should be packed up and put away. You can put it in the donate bag, advice to others, or you can put it in the garbage bag, because this is your life. You get to say what your needs are. You're the only one who really knows, and it's worth time and effort figuring that out. All right? Because when you figure that out, that is going to be the beginning of a much better, happier, more fulfilling time in your life. Okay? It's worth it. And you're going to hear in a little while that that is the beginning of the foundation. The foundation, okay, of the life you want. Protected by boundaries, your limits that keep you in the safety zone. You don't need procrastination. When you develop a good, healthy dose of assertiveness, not aggression, you're not reacting, you're asserting. Okay, what do I want? Where is it? How do I get it? How do I make others respect it? All right, that's the beginning. Boy, that's what I wish for you. Okay, so let's open up the chat box. Let's have a look here. All right, let's go up to the top. Okay. So Peter is joining us from Toronto. Hello, Peter. Hello, Anna. All right. Hélène, to everyone, I worry that I threw the knife in with the rest of the vegetable scraps and need to find it before I deal with getting rid of the scraps. So I leave everything on the counter while I eat rather than putting things away as I do them. So we talked a little bit about at the time, all right? There really, Hélène, isn't unless it's a problem for you, there really isn't a problem leaving the vegetable scraps on the cutting board, on the counter while you eat. And batching how you clean up. Maybe batching how you clean up so that I get the food out, I wash it, that's batching it. Okay, then I do the chopping up or the peeling or whatever. I put the tools down, I've got the food, I prepare it to cook or eat. I go and I eat. You're batching your activities. That's a good way to prevent mistakes. And then I go back and I clean up. Other people who develop more ease, probably because it comes more naturally to them. I like to batch work that I do. I find it a lot easier to get more done, which gives me more spare time to do what I want to do. Okay? But other people do clean as they go, all right? It just means that they have a different skill set. You have a skill set that you have. It's not a lack of skill. One is not better than the other. So think about cutting yourself some slack. Maybe if all the tools are there, you can assure yourself as you put the peels in a bag or whatever you're going to get rid of them in, all right? And all of your tools are there on the cutting board or on the counter, and you can count them. Okay, there's a peeler, what did I use? Done. Put it in the dishwasher, put it in the sink, okay? So I think some of my answer to you, Elaine, is be easier with yourself. If you batch things, sounds like you do, make it work for you, if that's easier. And keep things, tools together. And then check once, put them where they belong, and the scraps go out, okay? Leanne to everyone. Yes, I've done that at times as well, absolutely. What if you set limits or boundaries and then cross your own boundaries? And what if you want success, but you're afraid that your spouse will be left behind? Well, can you give me an example of setting limits or boundaries and then crossing them? Maybe you want to do that in an email to me privately before or after the show. So I'm going to do it two ways. So you set a limit. This is as far as I'm going to go. I'm not going to do more, okay? And then you're in the middle of an activity and you find that you're excited by it. You're engaged and you think, you know, I said I was only going to do that, but I actually want to do more. I would take on the additional one step at a time so that I don't commit to a new boundary limit that's way down there, and now, you know, I am setting myself up for failure. And yes, if you have a loved one and you want success at something, Leanne, you were given life. Okay, these are your skills. I would sit and have a good talk with the person that I love, and I would see what their take on it is. I can be afraid that I will have an effect on somebody, but I don't really know the truth of that until I sit and I have an honest conversation with the person. Maybe they will be my biggest cheering section. Or maybe I need to adapt the plan, the way I do what I want to do to have success. Maybe that's going to give me information to make an adaptation, all right, that makes it cool. But honest communication, All right. If you run into any difficulty with that, or I got the wrong end of the stick on that one, sounds like it's important to you, just email me, okay? And we'll figure it out. Okay. How can I keep going? I get so tired and I get discouraged, as is so overwhelming. I sometimes think it will take the rest of my life to go through everything. So that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how much has built up, let me tell you this, all right? I'm working with a number of people who have had damage done to their house, all right, because of the amount of stuff. One fellow, the back of the house collapsed. And given enough support and enough time and manageable work periods where we do the work and he does the work in between, we have, I won't say undone the problem, but we keep it at a manageable level, a safe enough manageable level. It really, truly is. And I know overwhelming brings people to a grinding halt quite often. What do you need? What do you need? All right. Where is it? And how can you make it work for you? Or how can you get enough of it? It really is the 15 to 20 minutes you do religiously every day. And in this type of situation, I would suggest you pick one area: safety first, health a very close second, happiness after that. So the safety corridor. In the book, it describes the safety corridor. It gives you pictures of what it looks like so you know when you're there, okay? I would suggest that you stick at that spot until you've reclaimed it and then move on to the next spot. Don't do 15, 20 minutes a day, kind of like a hummingbird, okay? You'll be surprised. I have somebody that I'm working with right now who sends me, not because she's accountable to me, she's not, just because she recognized that she needs accountability for herself. And so what she's doing is she is making it concrete. When she does her 15 minutes, she takes a picture before, she takes a picture after. You can keep those pictures yourself if that's enough, or you can send them to me in my email, all right? And you're being accountable to yourself. You're externalizing it. Good thing to do. Makes it more real, okay? Leanne, my son, didn't check a wastebasket as he was emptying it. Like, why would he? Yeah. Anyway, our remote had fallen into it and no one noticed. Bye-bye remote. I started putting away things when I'm cooking and canning, as it makes it easier. It does make it easier for some people, but some people, they think differently and they batch. I've got a joke about, at least your remote went out in the garbage. We started to buy our remotes in bulk because we have a puppy who now is a dog. We still call her a puppy because somehow it makes it more palatable that when she gets the remote, it's just the right size to chew on. It's not a remote that has batteries. It's the sound remote. Anyway, there are lots of ways to lose the remote. Does anyone find that now that I know, yes, I hear that all the time, Leslie. I wish they'd go back to every week. It would solve so many problems for so many people. Does anyone find that now that garbage day is every 2 weeks, it sometimes interferes with my decluttering schedule? My bins are full 1 week, so I can't do any more. Or if I miss a garbage day, that's a whole month. I hate this dilemma. So one of the things I'm wondering, Leslie, particularly on recycling or garbage, all right, we have one of those big rolly, it's like almost it's up to my shoulder, all right, and it's on wheels, and that holds 2 or 3 bags, and if we need more, then we'll get another one to put it out, because you just don't want to drag that many bags to the curb. And some people live in areas where animals get into them. All right, so that's for garbage. For recycling, go and get yourself more blue bins. Okay, go and get yourself more blue bins, and put out what you need. But yes, every 2 weeks makes everybody, whether they hoard or not, makes everybody challenged. Okay. Len, I find that if I do not clean up as I go, then things start to pile, okay, until they get out of control. So I need to keep at least a part of the counter clean, or it does get out of hand. That is true. When you tell yourself just for now, okay, or I'll do it later, later never comes. So you need to suit yourself. You need to, if you are a batcher, do it in batches. Cleaning up in batches, all right? If you are a do it as you go, that's do it as you go. Then, you know, you were concerned, Elaine, about throwing the knife or the peeler out with it, with the peelings. Get yourself a bowl then, okay? And for anything that is going out or you're going to consume it, it's part of the menu. The tools are the things you're probably worried about throwing out by mistake. Get yourself a bowl that's about that big, okay? Put it on the counter, and when you need your tools and you've used them, put them in the bowl, all right? So that they are either in the bowl clean or they're in the bowl used. And they're not on the counter, and you're not going to throw that bowl away, okay? Leanne, our garbage is switched. Are you really? Your garbage is switching to every week? I won't like that too much for the same reasons. Is that true? Is garbage really going to once a week? That would be wonderful. Shoshana to everyone, hi, developed new attitude, whereas before I would beat myself up for not getting things done for whatever reason. Now I look at it as a blip in my path, and I'll do better tomorrow, and I move on. Yes. Shoshana, that is a wonderful example of something we talked about quite a while ago. Growth mindset versus fixed mindset. That's in Jane Burka and Lenora Ewan's book as well. Growth mindset is it didn't go according to plan. And rather than beat yourself up, what do you say to yourself? What went wrong here? How did it go wrong? How serious is it to correct? All right. If it is seriousness, what have I learned? What do I want to do differently next time? That's the growth mindset. Fixed mindset is get out the paddle and smack myself with it, you know, beat myself up verbally, mentally, emotionally. How's that going to work for us? All right, good for you, Shoshana. I love it. Lisa, to everyone. I'm finding today's session so helpful for activating me. Had a couple of days when I was really down, not able to do anything to help myself. Now I'm re-energized and ready to go. Thank you. You're very welcome, Lisa. You're very welcome. Stay with us, okay? Yes, okay, thank you. And these sessions are motivating me to keep working at my piles. Woo, 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 That's what we want. And we want you to get rid of those piles so you can be happy. You can be happy and you can be proud of yourself and you can be free of that burden of, oh, I should, oh my, I gotta do something. Okay, and keeping my home safe, yes, safe above all else. So this does give me accountability to show, hey, that's another way. Come to the podcast. Bring your friends to the podcast who share any of the difficulties that you're experiencing, and keep doing something to improve my sorting and not beating yourself up with everything that's not done. I keep telling myself that you can eat it. Oh, can I use that one, Ellen? You can eat an elephant one spoonful at a time. Sorry to anybody who is particularly fond of elephants. How do you find people to help other than family if money's a factor? Finding people who won't judge and can manage privacy. Well, maybe we need to do a podcast on that. Joan, leave that with me, okay? Leave that one with me. And people, if you have any ideas, anything that has worked for you, send me an email, all right? Send me an email to that question. How can you find the help you need other than family if money is a factor? Because sometimes family aren't the right people to help. And Leanne says, that's wonderful, Shoshana. I'm working on developing that attitude as well. I meant every 2 weeks. Okay. I've been holding the paper to make little bags for scraps, recycling, which I then throw out after the meal is done. I keep it next to my cutting board, so I cut and then dispose. So I do not have to take a step to dispose of anything, which makes everything easier. Okay, Anna. I think the lockdown was quite hard on my mom and was not motivated to clean or put things away, especially since the grandkids would come over often enough and it suddenly stopped. So the past few weeks I've been making some trips a few times a week to help her. Or good for you, Anna. Organize and clean dishes, fold clothes, etc. But I forgot how overwhelming it is, and I get to go home at the end of the night, but my mom is stuck there. I've been becoming more and more aware of all the work she has to do with her business, as well as taking care of my dad, and how at the end of the day, she probably would rather put things off to relax than to have to work on tidying. I'm hoping my trips over there will help keep things going. Good for you, Anna. Good for you. You're a daughter to be loved and appreciated. San, with my daughter moving across the country soon, I found that those hang on to this sentimental item just for now has raised its powerful head again. This session today is a great repeat of how I can assess my own thought process and empower and forgive myself. Thanks, Elaine. Moving forward to 20 minutes again later today. And so part of what happens when our children leave home, all right, and I have to admit that when my daughter got on a plane to go to, this is quite a while ago, she finished university and she was going to England to try out for the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and to kind of live there and work there for 2 years as a change. Sending her off to university was one thing in BC, but sending her onto a plane for 2 years, who heaven knew who she was going to meet, what life was going to become. Would she fall in love and stay there? I've got one daughter, one son, and I have to admit, folks, don't be too hard on yourself. She and I cried. We were very, very brave up until the time it came to hug and send her through the security. We cried so hard that people around us who didn't even know us were bawling and crying. Okay, it is a life-changing moment because our role in life, it's tangible evidence that our role in life is adapting. All right. So be gentle with yourself, San. Be gentle with yourself and celebrate that you have a relationship with your daughter that is worth missing. All right. And that is a blessing. And anything you feel you need to keep and you know you don't really want, or you don't really believe that's the right thing. Some people find taking a picture, with our phones, we can take a screenshot of it. You can download that into your email, put that on an external hard drive. It can be your backdrop on your computer, all kinds of ways to remember the good times. Deanna, hello all, I'm new here. Welcome, Deanna. And this is exactly what I needed today. I have to get my house ready to sell. And now I have more hope that I can do it. If there's any other help we can help you with, Deanna, then we're here for you, okay? So I think that brings us to within 4 minutes of ending the podcast. And I want to introduce one new topic for you to think about this week, all right? So each of us has a personal relationship with every single thing we make important enough to keep in our environment, all right? Every single thing, okay? Including time. Were you aware, all right, that there are 2 ways to have a relationship with time? Subjective time, that's me, how I'm aware of time, how I treat it, how I respect it, how I treat it like a concrete thing, all right? And clock time. So this personal relationship, if it's out of whack, can be one of the factors, and we're going to talk about this next time, right? One of the factors, and cause a problem in anticipating deadlines. You know that I'm putting it down just for now. I'll do it later. That's what this is about. And it is like jet fuel to procrastination. And it makes it more difficult to work steadily toward goals. Okay, it isn't all just you. It isn't all fault. Have you learned or have you developed over time whether you have a subjective relationship to time that isn't necessarily working for you? Or maybe it's getting in the way. Forget working for you. Okay, maybe it's part of the problem. Or do you live on clock time? Do you know how to live on clock time? Do you know how to make clock time work for you? Because if you don't, right, having a dysfunctional relationship with time can predict how much time a job will actually take. All right? 2 ways. 2 ways it can predict. Number 1, you can seriously underestimate how long. And now you tell yourself, I'm going to get that counter cleaned off, and I've got 15 minutes to do it. And actually, not based just on volume of accumulation, but also based on how varied the objects are, the things are that are on the counter, and where their permanent place is in the home. They're not. Their permanent place is not within 3 to 4 steps. Maybe that's one of the reasons that the stuff on the counter doesn't get put away, or on the dining room table, or in the front hall. All right? Maybe one of the skills that we need to help you develop is to predict how long a job will take, so that you don't come out of every single job feeling like a failure, or feeling completely empty and whipped because you forced yourself to finish it, It can also cause relationship conflict. You know that person who is always 15 to 20 minutes late leaving the house and everybody's in the car waiting? All right. The person who has not learned not to be late for everything, where lateness counts. Okay. Your attitude to clock time, actual physical clock time, is linked to making avoidance and procrastination even worse. So let's talk more about that next time. Take care. If you need to, send me emails. Okay, I'll do my very best to send you the best answer that I can, not knowing you. And I'll see you next week. You take care. Make this a good one. Doesn't have to be the best. Just make it as good as it can possibly be. I'll be thinking about you. Take care. Bye, everybody.